Get my 6! Well, that's enough work for one day. Let's get right into story time. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the most awesomest homesteading channel on the planet. It typically has nothing whatsoever to do with homesteading at all. Homesteading off the grid. Whew, I'll tell you, when you're working long and hard like this, you must stay hydrated. But hey, how neat is that? Haha, we started this video out with some homesteading stuff. All right, time to get serious. I'm trying not to block your view of anything that may or may not creep up on us back there. People for years have said, how can you go out in those creepy woods unarmed or without your boomstick, etc. Things to that effect. I'm not going to anymore, not after what's been happening lately. And you may have already heard some tree knocks. Listen closely, because you're probably going to hear some more. It's that time of year again. Right on cue. All right, so guys, in the last week, something very, very strange happened to me. It's like, I don't know what you call it, serendipity or something. My beautiful bride, Dearly, and I were out a few evenings ago walking around our property here, actually coming up through here, and she said to me once again, when are you going to cut that big old oak limb up for firewood that fell 2 years ago? And I said, well, honey, I got this awesome contraption coming from, I mean, it wasn't the ultimate contraption, but it was a pretty awesome contraption from Beaver, the log claw, which you saw this past weekend I demoed. I said, I'm just waiting for that to come in and I'll get it cut up. And sure enough, I did. Thought I just heard again what I was about to talk about. So anyway, we heard what sounded like a donkey, and it's as if it was coming from right behind this tree. We had passed this point, we're a little bit up, actually turned around looking, expecting to see a donkey, as if somebody around here has a donkey that got loose. There are some donkeys around here, but they are several miles away from here. You can still hear them faintly, but this thing was like right there, but there was nothing there. And it reminded me of several incidences we've experienced here. We've caught some of it on video. Some scab channels are using artificial intelligence now to actually make videos from my videos. They're lifting my videos and creating entire stories that aren't even true. A lot of you guys I've probably gotten 100 emails about this. Listen, guys, I know what's going on. You got people who can't create quality content, so they go out and they steal content from those of us who can, try to repackage it as if it's their own, and AI is causing a real problem with this because it gives people the ability to do it completely invisibly behind the screen. I know it's out there, but one of the videos that's gone viral for somebody else went viral for us several years back. It sounded like there was a donkey brain when I was splitting wood one morning, but anyway, it's more than that. The story goes deeper than that. The next day, I was walking through here, didn't hear the donkey again, but I remembered it. And as I passed and I got to the exact same spot where my beautiful bride, Dearly, aka Giggly Girl, and myself had heard what sounded like a donkey just the evening before, I heard very clear and very distinctively and in a known woman's voice, a woman that I know. She said, "It ain't no donkey." And I stopped and I froze in my tracks and I turned once again, expecting to see this little old lady that I used to see sitting on her porch in the mornings. And I don't want to jump too far ahead of myself here. That's part of the story this evening. And of course, no one was there. Now, I have been called crazy. I mean, my nickname's Crazy Lake. Come on, the email address. If you got a story you want me to share here with the masses, you can email it to me. The email address is crazylake@mail.com. I mean, come on. I'm in over 50 now, got the brain fog thing going. I had the little C a couple times. had the jabs a couple times. We still don't know the long-term effects of either of those things. And I've been reading that memory loss and all, just strange stuff, brain fog is part of it. But I heard that woman's voice, and it brought back a couple of stories I'm going to share with you this evening. And it's the reason what I talked about, what I spoke of originally. People were like, how do you go out there in that creepy forest and tell those stories and be around all those strange things out there unarmed? Hey, you see that? That's a case. Now, I can't show you what's in that case because of this social media platform. It will get us probably kicked off. Let me tell you, that's not an empty case. I promise you that. Because I'm too old. I can't run as fast as I used to. I mean, I can still outrun 99% of the human race, to include people half my age, 80% younger than me, whatever. But we're talking about him, her, it, or they, what may or may not be back here. It's something that ain't no donkey. I'm not just going to take the risk of just being out on my property, minding my own business. All of a sudden, there's someone or something uninvited there with ill intent. Okay, them's just the facts, Jack. All right, now with all this said, it's story time. I'm going to read you two stories. They go together with everything that I just talked about. Okay, now I'm going to read to you from Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Volume 10, which is packed into Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Anthology 1, Volumes 1 through 10. The single largest collection of Bigfoot Sasquatch writing in the history of the English language. That's a fact. That's not me over-exaggerating, as I've been known to be accused of doing. Accusations I will neither confirm nor deny. But that's a true fact. That's a true story. I mean, it's probably in the Guinness Book of World Records. If it's not, it should be. But I'm going to read you the last two stories from Volume 10. And by the way, Volume 16 is in the works. Oh, wow. I can see clearly now. The cataracts are gone. Yeah, you keep looking back there. Stephanie got your story today. I read it, and Stephanie's in Washington. Got to do some editing on that. Going to be bringing it to you here soon. Stephen, Tim, Sarah, and 3 anonymous people in the last few days. I got all your stories. Be patient with me. Give me some time. I'm getting them out here to the people, okay? If you have a story you want shared, send it to the email crazylake@mail.com. Again, you got to give me your permission to share. If you don't want me to use your name, tell me, and we will keep you anonymous. But the first story came from somebody that wants to be kept anonymous all the way back. This was from a letter received March 23rd, 2021. So this is going back 4 years, but this ties in. This is a story called Skinwalker, Potentially. Mr. Lake, my name is what? My name is what? No, it could be Slim Shady because it starts with an S, but they wanted to be kept anonymous. My name is, we'll use anonymous. I don't care if you tell my story on your YouTube channel or if you put it in one of your books, which you probably won't. Author's note. Wrong! Because it has nothing to do with Bigfoot Sasquatch. Please just don't say my real name or tell anyone the small town I'm from in Texas. I've already done enough damage with this story. My own family hasn't spoken to me in years because of their embarrassment of me, because I continue to believe and talk about what I saw. The reason I'm writing to you about it is because I fear that you might have something much more. So guys, we've already got weirdness going on. I literally just had to restart this video because my phone just went blank as if it died, and it has a full charge. It did before I left the house. It's at like 96%. Here's part of it. Listen, I'm not going to say this word for the rest of this story. I'm going to refer to this as SW, okay? Part of the legend, or the, behind this, what's my kid call it? Part of the lore is that the more you say its name, the more likely it is to appear and the closer it gets. I said its name when I told you the title of this story. The next thing you know, I get into the first paragraph, and then the phone dies, and it's 96% charged. Okay, so please forgive that glitch. I'm going to get back into it, but when I say SW, know that this is what I'm talking about. I don't want the phone to die again, okay? So this anonymous person's from a small town in Texas. Their families disown them because they continue to talk about what they saw. It's not a Bigfoot Sasquatch. It's an SW, and they think we have one too here in our land. They continue. I don't know if you ever saw it or not, but several years ago there was a guy in Utah that had a big ranch that became known for its SWs. I'd heard about it through some of my friends. My curiosity finally got the better of me, so I watched some of his videos on YouTube. At first, I found them somewhat entertaining, though I felt they were fake, until I watched one that had a very distinct scream coming from supposedly an SW, and the sound of the scream made my blood run cold because I'd heard the exact same scream on our family property here in Texas. The family property, by the way, that I haven't set foot on in 5 years after having pretty much been excommunicated, shunned, and now entirely estranged by my family. I've tried to comment about this on your YouTube channel, but I think you've blocked me. If so, I'm not angry, and I know it's my fault. I used to comment that your videos were fake and that you were just doing it to make money on YouTube. I know you can make a lot of money on YouTube if you're good at it. I tried years ago, but I couldn't even get monetized, so I'll admit that for a while, out of jealousy, I would troll successful channels. Most channels didn't ban me when I called them fake, but I guess you have a zero tolerance policy for people like me, so here we are. Thank God you finally got a P.O. box so I could mail you this letter. FYI, that P.O. box has since been shut down. We were getting truckloads of gifts weekly, and though we appreciated them, we didn't need the stuff for number one, and number two, we felt that your money was better spent on you, not us. Continuing. Even after you banned me from commenting on your channel, I continued to watch because though I could tell that some of the videos were obviously fake, I'm sorry, Mr. Lake, but I'm just being honest with you, I could also tell that some were not. And what got me was that the videos I was seeing things in were not the videos where you were proclaiming there were weird things to see in. It's the videos you make where you just tell stories about your life, or when you would read some of the stories from your totally awesome short story collection, October Nights. I bought a copy, even though you've banned me from commenting on your channel. These are the videos in which I see things creeping around in the background. Things that many of your viewers claim are Bigfoot Sasquatch, but things which I know to be SWs. I don't know how I missed it earlier, but I only recently saw the video where your wife was potting oak trees in the garden. She really made a lot of noise doing that, by the way. You should have had the camera farther away from her. And you were splitting wood behind her, just outside the fence. At least you were supposed to be splitting wood. As usual, you just seemed to be doing a lot of talking. That's the video I was referencing earlier, the one that's recently been stolen by a scab channel and recreated through AI to make it look like something it's not. Like so many has been happening lately. There was one, make a sidebar note. One of my videos was lifted. It's a video I took last summer on the James River in Powhatan County, Virginia, halfway between Charlottesville and Richmond. It's a spot where we go catfishing all the time. Something big, large, and dark was in the water coming towards me. It came so close, and then it just kind of like went under the water. I got it on video. Some scab channel lifted that, put it in there, and had this AI authoritative voice speaking over it, and said I was on the Sasquamish River, which is in Washington State, which ironically, I used to live there, and I actually used to fly fish on that river. So that's odd. Is it a coincidence or what? I don't know. But I think they were saying Washington State because that's where there's been more Bigfoot Sasquatch sightings than any other state in the U.S., so that part of it would be fitting. But that was the James River in Virginia. And it's like, you people suck. These are the same people, like this writer of this letter, telling me I suck all the time because I have the ability to do that which they've tried and can't because they failed miserably. So they got to hate on me. And now they're stealing my crap. Whatever. You thieves. Ugh. Continuing. What's the old saying? If you can't beat them, steal from them. All right. Anyway, I heard the scream in that video, and oh my God, that is exactly the same scream that I heard in that SW Ranch video, and it's the exact same scream I heard on our property here in Texas several years ago. The scream of an SW. Mr. Lake, these creatures can imitate the sounds of animals around them. I know a lot of people comment on your videos that you have a donkey on a nearby neighboring property, but I'm here to tell you what I'm hearing over and over in your videos is no donkey. It's a skinwalker mimicking the sounds of a donkey. It's how they communicate. I better be careful. It's how they communicate, and it's with each other, and it's how they lure their prey. One of their nastiest tricks is to imitate the sounds of a baby. They can literally sound like infants crying in the woods. They lead people to them this way, and then they eat them. You must, however, be aware of their most notorious tactic. When they sound like they are close, they are actually far away. And when they sound like they are far away, like in the video of you talking instead of chopping wood, and your wife making all that noise with the pots, that thing was probably within sight of you. I have never been that scared while watching a YouTube video, ever. Ever. Sorry for my dirty fingernails. You've seen how much work I just did like a day's worth of work before I started story time, brah. All right. Mr. Lake, you must proceed with caution. I know you love working on your property, and I know you feel safe working on your property, but you are not safe. You and your family are in danger. I will share with you briefly my own story. After seeing the S. Walker Ranch video, I couldn't resist my curiosity any longer. The next time I heard that same scream on our property, which was only a few days later, I sought out the creature making the scream, and that decision has ruined my life. It has cost me all communication with my family, and it nearly got me killed. It happened just as the sun was going down. Just as the sun was going down. It wasn't dark yet, though it would be soon. I heard the scream coming from a pin oak thicket down by a creek that was only 100 yards from our family's old farmhouse's front porch. It sounded like a donkey, like in so many of your videos, but I knew it wasn't one because we didn't have any donkeys. I walked down to the creek, right into the middle of that pin oak thicket. I stopped, made sure not to make any sounds, and I listened. I then heard it again, but it sounded as if it had moved away while I was moving toward it. I kid you not, it sounded like it was a good mile away. However, when it screamed, I felt a slight warm breeze on my right ear, but I distinctly noted not feeling this breeze on any other part of my body. My hair didn't even move. It was as if someone was standing right beside me, blowing on my face. I turned my head to look in that direction, and the SW was right there, its face right in mine. That's the last thing I remember until I was being shaken by my older brother while lying on the front porch. His wife had thrown him out again for drinking all the time, and he'd moved back in with us. I had just turned 18 myself. I'm 24 now. I had only one physical injury, a cut on my right cheek. It looked like a cat scratch, but it was not an injury made by multiple claws. It was a cut made by only one, as if the SW had reached out with its index finger and given me a little love scratch, so to say, to leave its mark. Let me know it had paid me a visit. Well, I did what anyone else would do, at least what I thought anyone else would do. I contacted several different paranormal and cryptozoology groups on social media, and I had them come out to our property to investigate. Boy, was that a mistake. It made the local papers, it embarrassed my family, and the rumors began circulating all over the county that my family must be growing some good weed on our property because I was obviously smoking it. I was kicked out, disowned, and I've not talked to anyone in my family for years. My alcoholic brother, who can't keep a job and who really does smoke a lot of weed, won't even talk to me. Mr. Lake, the only advice I can give you is that you need to move. Pack up that pretty wife of yours and that cute little boy and take your cat. Get the hell out of there. Go into town, or even go back to wherever your wife is from. I can't remember if it's Cambodia or Vietnam, but either of those two places would probably be safer than where you're living now, even though I heard they got ticks the size of mice. Sincerely yours, S. Somewhere in Texas. The end. Well, that's creepy, isn't it? Now, how apropos that it comes before the next story that I'm going to read to you. Because listen, when I mentioned the story before the stories, Dearly and I, who is from the Philippines, by the way, same part of the planet, I guess. geographically close. That's a rooster coming from somewhere. I don't even know who has a rooster around here. So anyway, we heard what sounded like a donkey one evening. The next, I heard a known voice from an old woman saying that ain't no donkey. It's a woman who told me the story I'm about to read to you. Okay, this was a few days ago. And I thought when I heard that voice, I instinctively saw her sitting on her front porch. Don't want to get ahead of myself, and I'm going to save the best for last. I'm going to tell you the story, the end of the story, before the story, after the story, at the end of the story. Man, yeah, do that, AI. Do that kind of stuff right there. I got the skills that dispatches. You can't do that with a computer. I have what's called the human factor, and it will never be replicated to the degree of which I have it. I've retired 7 shrinks, brah. All right. This one is called It Ain't No Donkey. The final story in Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Volume 10, the final volume in Anthology 1. All right, available in print and Kindle on Amazon. And you can get autographed print copies for half the price of Amazon's price from our Etsy store. All those links are in the description box. Support me. I have to pay a lot of taxes every year. All proceeds go directly to me, and they're then turned over to the IRS in the Virginia Department of Taxation. All right, in the county for personal property taxes. It ain't no donkey. As you might imagine, the letter I received from a young woman in Texas recently, the letter you just read, if you're reading these stories in order, the one I just read to you, by the way, piqued my interest, not just because there are so many viewers constantly claiming to hear a donkey in my videos, and not just because there are times we hear hideous screams that sound like the screams of donkeys while out and about on our property, but because there are no donkeys in close proximity to us. Well, kind of, sort of, but I'll get to that. And I know this as fact because I went investigating, and what I found during that investigation at the time of the finding seemed insignificant, at least until now, having received aforementioned letter from aforementioned young lady in aforementioned Texas. That last aforementioned wasn't really there, but I put it there because editing 4 years later. If you follow our channel, Homesteading Off the Grid on YouTube, then you already know I'm an avid jogger / mountain biker / walker. I didn't say the first part. I know every road within a 5-mile radius of our house. I know that doesn't sound like much, but you'd be amazed how many back roads and offshoots of back roads there are out here in the country. And I know by sight each property, at least the part visible by the road that I can see as I jog, bike, or walk by, though I'll admit many of these estates out here, like one up the road a couple miles that sold only a few years back for $17.5 million, are made up of thousands of acres, mostly of the property, of course, which cannot be seen from the road. Most of the property can't be seen from the road. My point, no one has any donkeys. Well, actually, someone does now, but that comes later. However, after hearing what clearly sounds like a donkey so many times and having pinpointed the sound to a particular direction, I finally decided to just stop and ask around about who has the donkey. My findings, to quote the young lady from Texas in the previous story, made my blood run cold. So, the first person I asked about a donkey was simply the first person I saw. I was out for a jog one morning and I saw a woman, a white girl about 35 years old, loading something into the back of her car. She lived on the side of the road in a small house on a small property which bordered one of the very large estates in our area. I simply said, "Hey, do you know if anyone out here has any donkeys?" She looked at me like I was going to rape her, slammed the trunk of her car, and then she ran inside her house. True story. My first thoughts were, "You're not all that, Karen." But then, as I continued running, thinking about what had just happened, I realized I'd read the situation wrong. I'd never met that woman, but she'd passed me on the road many times while I'd been running, biking, or walking, and she'd always waved and smiled, and she was one of the few drivers out my way who always made sure to slow down and veer away from me as she passed me. She could not have been afraid of me, though she was clearly afraid of something. A week or so later, I was out on my mountain bike. I happened to be on the opposite side of the large estate that bordered Karen's property. There was an old house sitting by the road, and on the porch sat an old woman who appeared to be as old as the house. I would put both of them at about 100. Feel a little safer with it a lot closer. You hear those howls? Whew. Closer we get to October, the creepier it gets up here. This was not the first time I'd seen this old woman. I was used to seeing her there. Every time I biked by and she was there, she always waved and smiled, and I always waved and smiled back and said, "Good morning, young lady." I could always hear her giggle when I did that. On this day, I stopped. "Can I ask you a question, young lady?" I said, putting one foot down after stopping my bike only feet away from her rickety old porch. "Why, sure," she said with a smile. "Do you know if anyone out here has a donkey? I seem to hear one on occasion while I'm out and about on my property. I live right over that hill there." "I know where's you live," she said. "Used to be my cousin's land you bought." This did not surprise me. I live in a place where everyone's related to everyone else except us. We're the outsiders who still, after 5 years here, only receive waves from the vast minority of generational locals or other outsiders who've invaded, like Karen down the road. And you's just a hearing old Cletus," she said, and then she laughed. "Cletus?" I said. "Is that the donkey's name?" You'll have to forgive me just a second. I spat on my glasses when they were in my mouth and I was going for my boomstick. Something thinks it's funny. After about 8 years old, more of the generational locals started waving. So one guy pulls up and goes, "Well, I reckon you've been here 8 years. I might as well stop and say hi and get your name." He's actually a nice guy. I enjoy talking to him when I'm on my morning runs, and he leaves me the hell alone. So I like him. He waves when he sees me, leaves it at that. That's why most of us live in the country, to be left the hell alone, right? Okay. So I asked, "Who is Cletus? Is that the donkey's name?" "Used to be," she said. And then she leaned forward and spit a mouthful of tobacco juice off the porch, barely missing my foot. It hadn't occurred to me until then that she was chewing tobacco. It was the first time I'd seen a woman chewing tobacco, snuff actually, since leaving my native Appalachia stand many years ago. But hey, I guess I moved from Appalachia to the south, so it wasn't shocking. "Back when old Cletus was a living," she added. "Old Cletus been dead for 50 years. I know, I was there when he got killed." She spat again. "Well, I showed up right after old Cletus got killed. Happened out there on my other cousin's property." She pointed in the direction from where I'd always heard the donkey screams. "What killed him?" I asked. "Don't know," she said, gnawing on her snuff. "Most folks believe it was a mountain lion, but I think it's something different." "What do you think it was?" I asked. "Well," she said thoughtfully, "I think some things are best left unsaid. IESW. Hint, hint, wink, wink. I felt entirely let down until she spoke again. When she did, she said, "But I'll tell you this much. Whatever it was that killed old Cletus stole its voice box. Been going around screaming just like old Cletus used to ever since. And now what in hell lives on for 50 years and don't die other than a human? But I'm here to tell you what y'all's hearing ain't no human, and it ain't no donkey." I knew not how to respond to this. Was she putting me on? "I'll tell you one thing," she said, standing slowly. She moved over to the edge of the porch and cleaned the snuff out of her lower lip with an index finger, throwing it on the ground where I saw she had quite the pile of snuff balls. "If you hear it on your property, better get inside your house." She turned and walked in her house like I wasn't even there after that. At the time, I was convinced she was putting me on. If she'd been cousins with the woman who we'd bought our property from, then that would mean she was related to the worthless piece of welfare bum trash that used to take the hay off of our land, and she probably didn't like me, even though she'd never met me, and I'd always been friendly to her in passing, because the woman we bought the house from was related to that dude, the annoying neighbor I got rid of with the crayon. Oh, and by the way, call him white trash welfare bum, whatever. He's one of those Medicaid millionaires, people that keep assets not in his name, so he's worth millions and millions but can still bilk the system. Learned a lot about them in the last year. Let me tell you, y'all know what I'm talking about. Some of y'all might be watching. On with the story. Let me tell you, when you get into an area where the same families have lived for generations, you notice that they've developed an odd sort of entitlement mentality. Not that the government owes them a monthly check, but that they're entitled to have a say in what anyone new to their community does or does not do. They think they own the damn place or something. And that goes back to the hate collector trying to tell me what I could and couldn't do on my own property. Crazy, man, how people are nuts. Whatever I do within my legal rights on my property is my business and no one else's. I mean, that's common sense, right? You get out in the sticks, there's some people that think otherwise. Nutcases. But my gut told me this was wrong thinking. This little old lady actually seemed like a really nice woman, and I doubt that she disliked me just because I stopped allowing her piece of crap, I'll use that word, use a different one in the book, deadbeat, good-for-nothing, annoying welfare bum neighbor to take our hay. Should I tell you how I really feel about that guy? In time, I would come to believe that she was telling the truth. Now, as far as Karen goes, and the donkeys that are in our area, well, that young lady was no Karen at all. I would end up meeting her for real about a year later. Our kids, it turns out, are in the same grade, though in different classes at school, and I saw her at a school function. She actually approached me and told me she sees me running and biking all the time and that she loved all the trees my wife and I had planted on our property. After talking with this lady, whose name is not Karen, for several minutes, I reminded her of the morning I'd asked her about a donkey. She apologized for having made me feel like a serial rapist. She just said it scared her knowing that I had been hearing the donkey screams too because she'd heard the same story the old woman told me, but she'd heard it from someone else. As it turns out, the old piece of trash that used to get my hay used to get the hay off of her family's property until she and her husband bought it a couple years before we bought ours. Just like us, this family had bought their small 5 or 6 acres tract of land for their purposes, not to simply grow free hay for some generational local, and the hay collector took issue with them as well when they told him he could no longer take the hay. I guess he'd passively aggressively stalked them for a while too, just like he did us, and as he's done 5 or 6 other families since we've been here. That's his thing. And at one point, he'd told their daughter, who was my son's age, that the donkey man was going to get her. The woman told me they'd actually called the police on him for that, but the sheriff was his cousin, so nothing was done. Surprise, surprise. The lady told me that shortly after I'd asked her about the donkey, she and her husband bought a couple of donkeys so that when her daughter heard donkeys, she would assume it was hers. The lady told me that in only a few short months it worked. Though she and her husband hate taking care of the donkeys and they hate how loud they are glad their daughter no longer fears this so-called donkey man, and the whole family sleeps better. Though she admitted that, like myself now, she wonders just what in the hell is out there making the screams of a donkey from far away, sometimes by day and sometimes in the dead of night. Could it be a SW, like our young lady from Texas suggested in our previous story? Could it be the ghost of old Cletus? Or could it be Bigfoot Sasquatch mimicking the sounds of a donkey? Potentially. The end. Well, folks, there's a couple creepy stories for you, and the story before the story was creepy as well, but here's the creepiest part of it. Here comes the ending to the story before the stories. Now that we're at the end, I said a known woman's voice I heard. Same place my beautiful bride Dearly, a.k.a. Giggly Girl, and myself believed we heard a donkey right behind this tree the evening before. It was the voice of the old woman. She clearly and distinctively said, "It ain't no donkey." So when I went up there just yesterday to say hi, because I hadn't seen her in a couple of years, I met the new residents of her house, and I was informed that she passed away 2 years ago. So it couldn't have been her, clearly, because she's dead. What did I hear? Reckon I ain't got no ID. But I'll tell you this much, whatever it was, it's the reason I will no longer go into the woods unarmed. See you for more next time for the most awesomest homesteading channel on the planet that typically doesn't have anything whatsoever to do with homesteading. Homesteading off the grid.